This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. To learn more or to subscribe, visit beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew. It's episode 484 of the Craft Beer and Brewing Podcast. I'm Jamie Bogner, and we're still in Chicago for this week's episode. If you listened to our special episode last Tuesday with Omega Yeast, you obviously heard today's guest, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper in this episode with Matt Gallagher, co-founder of Half Acre and founder of Suncatcher Brewing here in Chicago. Welcome back, Matt.
Hey, how's it going? Great to have you here.
What a beautiful little spot you have. Some other brewers in town have described this to me as the best brewery patio in Chicago. It's quite a thing, and the vibe you've built here is pretty rad.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's been working on it for a long time. Live close by, and was kind of dreaming of doing something close by, and have walked by this space many times, and then one day I just saw it with kind of fresh eyes and was like, whoa, this patio could be something.
Well, it says a lot that you decided to open a new brewery in today's market, especially given how successful Half Acre has been in the overall market. Even now, recent news doing things like joining forces with Maplewood and building a larger tent for craft beer here in Chicago. Making this kind of investment in today's market is an unusual one, and would love to unpack some of the reasoning behind that. But we're also going to talk about how you brew beer. Obviously, beer like Daisy Cutter with Half Acre is a classic in the industry, has achieved this kind of status. It's just one of those beers that it's a touchstone or a reference point. People think about it in the way that they think about things like Two Hearted or Zombie Dust or these kind of signature beers for a brewery. And if I think about a pick six, lots of brewers that I have asked about their 6 beers they would put in the most influential list on them, Daisy Cutter shows up time and time again. There's quite a few of those. So we're going to talk about Daisy Cutter because I have you here and we can. We're going to talk about your approach with Suncatcher here, which I think is a cool and slightly unusual in the world of craft as an approach to how you create a tap list and put those beers out there. We're going to talk about all of those things, but before we dive into today's podcast, a quick word for the brewers out there staring down a broken chiller. You know the pain. Warm fermenters, stressed yeast, and that sinking feeling when the repair quote lands in your inbox. With refrigerant regulations changing and the cost of obsolete refrigerants skyrocketing, sometimes the fix costs more than the unit's worth. G&D Chillers is there to help, whether you're a small brew pub or a large full-scale production brewery. Don't throw good money at bad equipment. Invest in a solution that grows with your brewery and keeps your tanks cold when it counts. Big thanks to G&D Chillers for supporting this podcast since 2019. Reach out to them at gdchillers.com/podcast to learn how they can support these next years of your brewery's growth. And Berkeley Yeast just launched Dry Tropics London, their best-selling liquid yeast strain, now with all the ease-of-use benefits of dry yeast. Dry Tropics London delivers the soft, pillowy mouthfeel and juicy character you'd expect from a top-tier London ale strain, but with a serious upgrade, a burst of thiols that unleash vibrant, layered notes of grapefruit and passion fruit. A lot of brewers love the clean passion fruit you get from Tropics, but they don't want every IPA to be a tropical fruit bomb. At the dry yeast price point, you can pitch and ditch without breaking the bank, or you can co-pitch with your house strain to adjust the intensity of the notes. And with nationwide free shipping, there's never been a better time to try Dry Tropics. Order now at berkeleyyeast.com and experience the ease and impact of Dry Tropics London yeast. Also, this episode is sponsored by PackTech, delivering craft beer multi-packing you can trust. PackTech's handles are made from 100% recycled plastic and are fully recyclable, helping breweries close the loop and advance the circular economy. With a minimalist design, durable functionality you can rely on, and custom color matching, PackTech helps brands stand out while staying sustainable. Trusted by craft brewers nationwide, they offer a smarter, sustainable way to carry your beer. To learn more, visit packtech-opi.com. That's PAKTECH-OPI.com. All right, Matt, let's start with your story and the Half Acre story, and we'll eventually track it back here to Suncatcher. But where's your beer story start?
Beer story, good question. I would say, it goes to Colorado. So I had older brother who lived he moved out to Denver in maybe 96. And I got out there in 2000 to go to graduate school. And, growing up in New Jersey and then showing up in Colorado in 2000 was like culture shock in all the best ways. And it was awesome.
I 100%, I remember I spent a summer in Salt Lake City, the summer of 1995, between my junior and senior year of college, and drove out from Tennessee to where I was in school. And when I went to I think it was Liquor Mart in Boulder, and just saw like doors of craft beer bombers. Like I had never seen that kind of selection of craft beer before. And it was just blew my mind. And like, this is a different kind of place.
Yeah, totally. So, we had been drinking some Sammy Smith, some of the East Coast, craft beers, but then coming out to Colorado and seeing, it was mostly like everything around the beer. The beer was exciting, but it was just the vibe around it too was just very attractive, especially being in Colorado outdoors, spending all the time, skiing, hiking, backpacking, and then at the end of the day, having a great selection of beer that just meshed. It was the whole lifestyle of it. And then seeing that like, oh, small places can make beer. It's not just a big beer factory. So that was pretty eye-opening, and it kind of stayed with me as I moved back to Chicago. And after about 5 years in Chicago, well, first off, coming to Chicago was also a little bit like, well, how could this city is way bigger than Denver. Why are there not more breweries?
Sure.
So that stuck with me too. And then after about 5 years, it just kind of, the two things kind of clicked in terms of, I think Chicago could use another brewery, and being very naive and be like,
sure,
maybe I could open a brewery. So that's kind of how it started, and met my partner Gabriel, who had already kind of got Half Acre off the ground. So I reached out to him and was like, hey, I want to get in on this. What's going on? And it was a real perfect match between the two of us, kind of meeting at the right place at the right time, and being very fortunate with the timing and with our partnership of being able to get Half Acre going and growing, and and being able to take it to where it is now.
Yeah. So what year was that?
This was 2007.
Right before that financial crash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We closed on a bank loan in summer of 08.
Yikes.
When, our banker assured us, like, I think you still would have been fine. But, again, going back to being very naive, and we had very tunnel vision. We're just like, didn't really know what we were doing, but just were very motivated to just do it. And it kind of worked out.
I mean, hindsight's 2020, but obviously that was just perfect timing in terms of, and I shouldn't say it was perfect timing. It was similar, like-minded folks across the economy and in cities across North America who all started getting some of the same itch at the same time, but also came at it with some talent and came at it with some fresh eyes after that kind of. There was a disappointing time in craft beer in the early 2000s where things kind of slid and breweries closed, and and that was this refreshed energy. You could come in, you could actually get some pretty inexpensive brewing equipment on the used market back then, and it kind of created opportunity for another generation of brewers.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and talking to some of the established brewers at the time, they're like, "Oh, great, another engineer is going to quit his great job with benefits and pay to like lose all your money at a brewery."
Thankfully, it worked out a little bit better for you. So in those early days, like, beer styles, even in the late 2000s, were still kind of traditional in some sense, and getting into it. What felt like fresh was a little different than what we started seeing in terms of innovation in the 2010s. So how'd you guys go about building a beer program for Half Acre?
It was certainly like hops. Gabriel and I were very attracted to hops, and very much attracted to like hop aroma. So with Daisy Cutter, the goal, when we would talk about like what kind of beer do we want to make, was like, we want to have a beer that when it gets poured at the end of the bar, you could smell it at the other end of the bar. So it was focusing less on bitterness and more on flavor and aroma. So that was the goal. But again, talking about timing, when we, 2007, 2008, that was when the hop market kind of crashed as well. And a lot of these hops were just straight up not available, especially to a new brewery who had zero relationships with hop merchants, with hop growers. We didn't know anybody. People wouldn't really talk to us. They didn't trust, they didn't want to sign a contract with a brewer they didn't know, without, thinking that like, well, we're not going to take a chance on a brewery who's the brewery's going to fail, and then we're going to be stuck with these hops. So that was, Daisy Cutter. It took us probably about 2 years before we could actually get the hops that we wanted to make that style of beer.
It's amazing to think about now because, through the 20 teens, every brewer just had access to, on the spot market, whatever they wanted. And obviously hop growers just skyrocketed, their capacity, started growing more hops. And now, then kind of went off the other direction. And now we're in another adjustment period as things pull back down. Yeah.
So it was a great experience for us to see that and to see that through both, a brewer lens and a business lens. And it's going to come back around again. And we talk about this a lot, like, there's going to be a shortage again. Like, hops are like everything else. It goes in cycles. So I think it's very important to contract. And I think a lot of breweries have opened when, like you said, you don't need to sign any contracts. Any hop is available at any time. But there will be a period when that's not going to be the case. And I think those strong relationships with your merchants and growers and having it in paper is crucial to make sure you can make the beer you want to make.
Spoken like a hop quality group member right there.
There you go.
We're getting the official talking points out right here.
Signed contracts.
But it is an important thing. And I think whatever it is, this is a total side note, but I do think that next time we see a challenge, we do at least have some hop stock out there. There are some previous year hops still available that have been stored well. And obviously, I think we'll be able to buffer some of that challenge. So it may not be like a 2007 thing where, it took Sam Adams releasing some of their hops out onto the market just to kind of keep other craft brewers afloat. Thankfully, there is a communal sense among craft brewers around that kind of thing. But, so hopefully we'll be able to buffer some of that challenge. But I mean, we start seeing like the effects of climate change and how that impacts agriculture. One bad year can even the playing field again and put it right back into, a kind of balance between supply and demand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So then, you 2 years of making Daisy Cutter then before you could actually get the hops that you wanted. And, how did you start thinking about what hops you wanted and what kind of character in those specific hops that you wanted? And then, in that kind of era, how did you even build the kind of perspective to know what you were looking for?
Yeah, it was, we were very much guided by weed.
Because you could not go out to selection and then, rub 10, 15 different lots of something. Like, you couldn't even get a contract, much less be able to go do that kind of, build that kind of knowledge base.
Yeah, exactly. It was, it was also just being a beer consumer and being like, I remember a moment for me when a lot of the beers here in the Midwest, Gumball Head from Three Floyds or Founders Red's Rye, I was like, man, I like these beers. And then learning both these beers have Amarillo in them. I guess I like Amarillo. And then moving that forward to when it's time to make beer, it's we got to use Amarillo because I love those other beers. Or especially being in the Midwest, Centennial is kind of a mandatory hop to use out here.
For sure. So in Daisy Cutter itself, you knew, did you think about a specific flavor, or was it particularly driven by those specific hops, or how do you think about what the beer was going to be? Yeah,
it was, and then it was again, kind of guided by weed aroma too.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's always I would some sensory folks don't like the word dank because it's what does dank mean? But it was always we need the dank. So Columbus was in there too. So it was trying to make a beer smell like weed, and just being a big, as big of an aromatic as it could, but still being a pale ale. So finding that balance between drinkability. And, at the time we were like, whoa, this is the hoppiest beer ever. Now you drink Daisy Cutter and it's like, nice, easygoing pale ale.
It's such a funny thing. I was just thinking about that. I was like, oh, you described that as dank?
Yeah.
I mean, it might have felt dank at the time, but we've just gone so far beyond that kind of impression.
Exactly.
And amazing how everyone is just kind of calibrated and it just feels like, just a normal beer.
Yeah.
Well, I want to, let's keep talking about Daisy Cutter. And I kind of want to dig into, just your approach to pale ale in general, because also I imagine that beer has, continued to, while maintaining a central core of what it is, continued to update as you have built more knowledge, built more connections within, the overall agricultural side of brewing and, built more understanding. And, even as, we shouldn't underplay the impact of general improvement in malt quality over the last 15, 20 years of brewing. So I want to talk about some of those, some of that evolution. Before we do that, Oregon hop country is heaven to world-class lager varieties. And Indy Hops is proud to have introduced Oregon's newest lager hop, Lorien, in 2022. Lorien is in a growing list of beers that have found their way onto the podium and, more importantly, into the hearts of lager lovers across the country. Discover Indy Hops Lorien. Side effects may include rampant festivity, sales bumps, and exceeded expectations. Indy Hops, life is short. Let's make it flavorful. And if you're like many podcast listeners, you've got a lot of beers at home and your regular fridge is at capacity, enter the Midea 50/50 Flex, the industry's first dual compartment 3-way convertible freezer. Here's what all that means for you. Options. The 50/50 has the power to be all freezer, all fridge, or a little bit of both, but you'll probably want to use those 20 cubic feet as a massive garage-ready beer fridge. You can also change which side the door is on or how you want the shelves to be arranged. The 50/50 totally flexes to fit your life. Plus, it's designed to maintain a stable temperature even in non-climate controlled conditions, so you can crack a cold one even in the warmest days in the man cave. Take your garage to the next level. Check out midea.com/US to get more info about this game changer today. Also, if your brewery is using fruit juice concentrates, purees, and blends, then why not source everything from a one-stop shop? Old Orchard might be best known for flavored blends, but if you need 100% purees or concentrates, then Old Orchard can likely help, even with options not listed on their website. Let Old Orchard know what you need at oldorchard.com/brewer. That's oldorchard.com/brewer. So Matt, for you, is that history of Daisy Cutter just a kind of a long, linear progression? Is it incremental bumps at various points where there's some kind of touchstone moments along the way, or has it just been kind of smooth, incremental iteration all the way along?
In terms of sales, it just took off. I mean, for Half Acre, our first beer was Half Acre Lager, which was kind of, I would...
Leading with lager as a craft brewery.
Leading with lager in 2007. So, again, it goes back to hop supply as well. Leading with lager. Then the second beer was a beer called Over Ale, which was kind of, we call it the stylist wonder, because it was like kind of a dark amber, light brown ale, still a little hoppy. And it was just kind of like an ESB. I think when we had to pick a style, we called it an American style bitter. And then after that, we finally are able to source some sort of what we call now IPA hops. And, we make Daisy Cutter, we keg it off, get it out to the market. And it was apparent immediately, this is what Chicago is looking for. So pretty much from as soon as we, released that first batch of Daisy, we became a Daisy Cutter brewery. And we were like, all right, let's go. This is what we're doing.
Well, it's also interesting to think that at that time, breweries were not necessarily the brand. The beers tended to be the brand. Mm-hmm. And, Sam Adams was the Sam Adams or Boston Beer Company was Sam Adams based on the beer itself. And so this idea of craft brewery as a brand in itself, where you would come and then try a bunch of the different brands, that was an evolving concept even at that time. And so it did need to focus on specific beers that you could get out there into the market and that could find that kind of connection.
Yeah, we were known as, the Daisy Cutter Brewery. It's like, oh, Half Acre. They're like, what's Half Acre? Well, we make Daisy Cutter. Oh, yeah, okay. I know that one.
Yeah. So, so then mark some of that evolution for me. Was it just kind of a smooth, progression? Obviously, things skyrocketed from a sales standpoint, but were there some marks where you're like, now this is really starting to be the beer that I want it to be? And were there even some points in there where you're like, it could be even this that I hadn't considered before, but now that I have access to these kinds of things?
Yeah, and it's a little ironic because we would nickname it Hazy Cutter because it was, we were not, we had some work to do in terms of learning how to properly cellar and transfer beer. So it was, we would like literally.
You just didn't want to lose those great hop oils that you worked so hard to get in there. Right?
Yeah. Like our process was like, all right, the first keg you fill, like put that off to the side because that's all junk. And then I think one of those kegs got out to a bar here in Chicago, Sheffield's, and it plugged the draft line.
Oh no.
So, there was some early hiccups there. But I think it was, one, putting it in 16-ounce cans, that was like the next step for Daisy Cutter. And then when we were able to get things dialed in, and again, it was like it was a whole bunch of small little adjustments that were made that I couldn't even go back and say what they were, but Daisy Cutter just started becoming clearer and clearer. And it was like our brewery and Daisy Cutter, our brewery processes and Daisy Cutter just kind of aligned, where it was just like, I think as we started to move into 60 barrel tanks as well, and it just started coming out cleaner. It looked, the appearance was better and just more consistent. But this was also at a time when, okay, this year we are not getting any Amarillo. The year after, no Simcoe. So it was also constantly juggling, like, how do we keep the beer vibrant, that big pine, big grapefruit, big aroma, with a constantly shifting landscape of what hops that we could acquire. So yeah, it was a beer
that's crazy just to lose a key hop to this. Like, how did you manage for around those?
We were just kind of grabbing whatever we could, Cascade, a Tannum, Chinook, because the original recipe is Centennial, Amarillo, Simcoe, Columbus. But again, it seemed like Simcoe and Amarillo would trade off year by year, being like, which one, it'd be like, sure. Oh, you contracted this amount of Amarillo, but everyone's getting cut down to 30% of their contract. So it's like, okay, what do we do? So we were just kind of scramble and just kind of throw everything we could at it. And I remember distinctly, maybe it was like 2012, where it's like, we have both Amarillo and Simcoe. This is going to be awesome. And I remember like having some folks from St. Louis up in town, and we were like, you got to try this. We finally got it back, and we were all very excited.
Gosh, that it's crazy even to think about that. So, but at least you had a matrix of 4 different hops. So if things were moving around, I remember talking to Jeff Urway at La Cumbre, and same kind of thing. We're using a 6-hop blend, and it's very intentional in that way with their elevated IPA, in order to be able to to have some of that leeway in pulling things out and moving things around, without it just having just this massive effect on the flavor. Yeah,
because that was a time as well where beers were sort of branded by the hop. You had Nugget Nectar from Trogs. You obviously had Founder Centennial, and people were really leaning into like, this beer is this hop, and then we can't get it, and then it's even harder. So we were fortunate that Daisy Cutter is has a robust hop bill that can tolerate some changes here or there, and kind of shift the heavyweight onto a different variety if needed.
So then the other interesting thing that starts to happen in the early and mid 2010s, from this 2012 point where you can now finally get both Simcoe and Amarillo at the same time. I would argue that, some of the increasing interest and volume in craft beer, it's not even my argument, that hop growers started building more resources. Like, we should think about this kind of period as they were coming out of real financial problems in the mid 2000s, ones we've talked about here on the podcast, Jason Peralt recounted, like in 2006, their hop farm was about, like, they were about to file for bankruptcy. That happened to a lot of hop growers in those mid 2000s. Like, they were on the edge of non-existence at that point, where we're seeing a little bit of that now with farms selling and folks having some financial challenges. But like, it was existential for them at that point. And so there wasn't like major investment into like, how do we improve our process? How can we change our kilning approach? How do we approach food safe? Like, there wasn't the resources to invest in any of that. But then by the mid 20 teens, we started seeing some pretty significant investments into that approach to hop quality, that in terms of picking window, understanding oil content, doing more kind of science and background. And so that had to kind of shift even the quality of some of these hops you had access to.
Totally. And it's been fantastic to be able to see that change firsthand, because I think the first time we went out to the Yakima Valley was, I want to say, maybe 2012. And at the time, it was, pretty mellow, not a lot going on. We were hearing from growers like, oh, the kids don't want to take on the farm. They don't want to be doing this anymore. And then to keep going back year over year. And then you see the kids are like, oh, people are interested in hops. This is exciting. I want to, I'm coming back to the farm, and then seeing them now take over and run their farms. And then the amount of investment is incredible. Seeing the amount of money that was going in. I remember thinking about it. I'm like, well, farmers, they know, they're basically, they deal with risk. That's what they do. And the fact that they're betting on us was like, wow, okay, they're putting a lot of money in based on our industry. So I was like, all right, well, I feel good about our industry, because these folks wouldn't be doing this if they didn't think that there was a viable model there. But yeah, seeing the all the new infrastructure going in, and knowing from a brewery side, like, we spend a lot of money on equipment, but the growers and the processors, that's significant investment. And so seeing that go in, and like you said, the impact it's had on quality, incredible. So it's been just fantastic to be able to work with these raw materials, and just going back to, like, we're now so confident that, okay, these are hops from 3 harvests ago. We know they've been packaged well. They've been stored well, and they're going to be fine. So there's so much more confidence now. Whereas, like, when we were first brewing, we're like, well, we don't want last year's hops. Our beers are going to suck if we use those hops. And now it's like, no problem at all. Oh, you have the same lot that we selected last year? Great. Like, we'll keep rolling with that.
How does that even change some of your approach to selecting these same like core hops? And imagine you may have changed some of these hops then out over the years because that character that you thought was intense when you started thinking about these recipes in 2008, 2009, 2010. Like, even that character and pungency and intensity within these same varieties now is a little bit heightened relative to where it might have been at that same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, going back to picking windows and just like growing processes to with a hop like Cascade, and sometimes you have Cascade now. You're like, holy cow, this is just super off the intensity charts. So yeah, it does impact how you're using these hops. And, we talk at Half Acre a lot about the best thing that we did for the quality of our beer was to go out and select our hops. By far the most important decision we made. You can buy really nice equipment. You can have, really, really talented brewers who are working with great SOPs. But it comes down to those raw materials and being able to, the first year we went out, we referred to it as hop rejection, because we'd be like, all right, 6 lots here. We're really glad we're not getting that one. These 3 are awesome. Who knows what we're not seeing? We're a small brewery. We're just kind of seeing whatever they're showing us. But, thank goodness we're not going to get these.
Negative selection.
Yeah.
Negative selection is important.
Yeah. But now you go to hop selection and there's nothing bad on the table. It's, so it goes back to the growing practices and the growers, growing hops and breeding hops specifically for craft beer, where when we first went out, we were like, we dry hop with Cascade, we dry hop with Columbus. They're like, what are you talking about? Matt Hollingberry is like, what are you talking about? Like, all these hops are going to extract. We're like, well, we dry hop with them. Now Columbus is a big aroma hop.
You're on the front end of that, I guess. It's if you're making a West Coast IPA and you want it dank, it's got to have a little bit of Columbus or Columbus Cryo, even better, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm using here. The dank dive Columbus Cryo.
Are you using that now?
Yeah. That's a fun one. Fast forwarding here to Suncatcher, I got that box in. The first time I opened up the bag, I was like, holy shit. Like, and I actually cut the recipe back. I was like, this is too much. But then I was like, maybe not. So now, it's awesome. But if I opened up that bag, I was like, Jesus Christ.
That's amazing. There are year-to-year changes in this, and obviously Half Acre is producing enough days, like a very significant amount of Daisy Cutter. It's it's not like one lot of something is going to be enough to fuel all of your production for a year. So how do you all think about making the selection across lots and then evaluating those as they then come into the beer? Because it's also large enough where people have expectations for it. You have to create a standard for it. You need to kind of evaluate and test these as the ingredients as they're coming in, as that crop year changes over, and see how those new things that have smelled really good on a table then translate into your beer, and then tweak and adjust or blend. Tell me about that kind of process of integrating new hops into a very kind of important, consistent recipe.
Yeah, it's evolved a lot over the years, and we're in a really great spot now. I'm really, really proud of the Half Acre crew for how it's done, because Matt Young, who's now our director of brewing operations, we would go for selection, and we'd be on the plane on the way back, just like jazzed up with ideas. We can't wait to get these hops in, and this is the year we're going to actually do some trials with them, make sure we know what they are, and then you're busy. It's an unfortunate reality of small craft breweries, is that like you got all the best intentions in the world to do things, and then you just don't do them. So it's like, we ran out of time. We got to use these hops. Let's just see how they are in the production beer. But now we've got awesome processes and procedures where, okay, we're bringing in the new crop year. We do some small scale tests with them, see how they are, run them through our sensory, get all the data, and then go from there. So it's we're doing what we knew we should have been doing for years, and kind of slowly every year we'd get a little better at it. But we're in a great spot now, and because again, it is still shifting, and it's also shifting based on the reality of maybe we overbought a certain variety. It's got to go somewhere. How are we going to blend that in? So we'll do some trials, and Daisy Cutter is we've talked about a very resilient. Has a very resilient hop bill that can take a lot of different hops in it. So it's a good way for us to ensure we're going through our inventory properly without negatively impacting the beer. So I would say a lot of work goes on both on the quality side, sensory side, and the just brew house management side. Again, staying on top of like communication. It's just like, it'd be like, oh, we forgot that we switched to this, and nobody told the brewer who grabbed the hops, so we're way better now in terms of everything staged and ready to go. And I know there's a lot of breweries who are like, oh, you guys are idiots, why weren't you doing that before? But it took us a little time, but we're got things pretty dialed in now.
Happens. You grow up, and you have to get a little bit better at things, a little more disciplined, and in order to kind of, as the tanks get bigger, then the stakes get larger, and you can't afford to make those mistakes anymore.
Yep, and the CFO is monitoring the inventories very closely. That's why I do not buy hops at Half Acre anymore.
They have taken that responsibility away from you. Sure. Well, let's transition, and I would love to talk about how Suncatcher enters this picture the motivation behind it. And obviously, coming from Half Acre, the scale here at Suncatcher is pretty dramatically different. It is definitely a return to those roots. A small brew house back here, a big patio, a beautiful old building, and a cool approach. But then the beers that you're making are, I would say, not an attempt to drive hype in any kind of way. They're a way to build beers that are accessible to people, that are meant to be consumed socially out here, and also designed for 2 or 3 of them rather than just sampling one or getting tasters and flights or that kind of thing. So I want to talk about this approach to Suncatcher, but first, the pain all too well. You're guessing at market trends, left in the dark about how your liquids are performing on the shelves. You can't tell if your distributors are actually executing the objectives you gave them. But now there's a faster, more real-time and value-packed way to get the full picture instantly and strengthen those distributor partnerships. Introducing Orbit by Encompass. Orbit data and CRM connects your production performance directly to the wider beverage market. Orbit data provides real-time visibility into retailer data, sales, and inventory so you can make faster and clearer decisions. It's also a CRM for your supplier sales team that brings total transparency to your distributor relationships, keeping them accountable to what they need to sell and how. Orbit empowers producers to drive decisions with accurate data, discover new profit streams, and pivot faster than ever before. Go to encompasstech.com/launch-orbit for more details. That's encompasstech.com/launch-orbit. And running a brewery means juggling a lot, managing production, serving guests, selling online, and keeping everything moving behind the scenes. That's where Arrived comes in. What started as a point-of-sale system has grown into the technology your brewery runs on, built specifically for the teams behind great beer. Unlike generic systems, Arrived brings together taproom service, online sales, brewery management, payments, reporting, and growth tools into one complete platform. So instead of bouncing between systems, you can brew, serve, and sell all in one place. Visit Arrived, ARRYVED.com to learn more. Also, brewing has always been about creativity, but at scale, it's about control. For more than 100 years, Haas has worked with brewers to push what's possible with hops. And today that means more control over flavor, efficiency, and consistency. Their advanced products help you get more out of every brew, more flavor where you want it, less waste in the process, faster tank turns, and results you can count on batch after batch, year after year. From next generation pellets like Lupicore and Lupamax to innovations like Incognito and Euphorix, Haas products fit seamlessly into your process from the hot side through fermentation to the cold side. Advanced hop products are just one of the ways that Haas is growing the future of brewing. Learn more at johnihaas.com. All right, man, let's talk about Suncatcher. We've done the first half of this about Half Acre, which I feel like I had to do because we've never done a Half Acre episode before. So then you live here in the neighborhood. You'd walked past this location. It just started speaking to you like this needs to be a neighborhood brewery. You come out of a successful, pretty large scale now, brewery of Half Acre, producing beer, distributing lots and lots of beer. What made you decide to take on small scale brewing here for a neighborhood, primarily over the bar in a tap room? What made you in today's beer market decide to do this as a business?
Again, I think being very naive a second time.
You're not naive. You knew exactly what you were getting into.
Being like, this won't be that bad. It won't be that hard. It's been it's been a struggle, but happy to be open and just, it was just kind of like it's just something I felt I needed to do, something I really wanted to do, and was very excited about doing. And then just, I got the support and the okay from my wife as well, who's very involved in the business. And with her support, it was like, all right, you think we should do this? Let's do it. So we just kind of forged ahead with it. And it's really, it came together very organically in terms of finding the space, the people who were involved with this location were very supportive and excited and like, oh yeah, this will be great. So it all kind of clicked, and then we had a lot of delays, and some things did not click, but we got through it, and got the place open. And again, opening a brewery right now, not the best financial decision, but the hope here is to see if we can, with modest expectations, and modest in scale, can it be sustainable both financially, physically, mentally? Can it be sustainable for years without the need for it to grow volume wise? So it's kind of a little experiment too in my brain of like, we need to grow. Growth is necessary, both creatively as well as financially. Costs go up every year. You need to find ways to grow. Your employees here, they want to get paid more as time goes on. So there needs to be growth. But are you able to grow without needing to really ramp up volume wise? And can you find other ways to grow both creatively and financially? So that's the hope here. We're about a year and a half into it, and I think have transitioned from just getting open and doing whatever it takes to get open, and then just really gut driven that first year of just like, we need to make decisions. What are we doing? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? And I think now we're gently getting into the next phase of like, all right, how do we refine this? Who are we? Why are people coming here? What are we doing well? What do we need to work on? So it's really, knowing that we're signing up for this for the long term, and excited about that. And a lot of it too goes back to, building Half Acre. We were in a great neighborhood support, great community. But I used to live up there, and when we opened Half Acre, we ended up moving down here. So that always kind of nagged me a little bit, like, man, I wish I could go all in, both in the neighborhood and the business, and really just have those. And I was always jealous of my friends down here who had businesses, and just really wanted to go all in this neighborhood. So this has been that, and it's been fantastic to be able to walk to work. You have the neighbors zooming by on the street. You have the neighbors coming in. So it's been a really fun experience to sort of drill down rather than kind of picking your head up and thinking big, really kind of doing the opposite, and really, trying to go deep rather than wide in terms of what Suncatcher is doing.
That's an interesting idea, thinking we're going to focus on only selling beer here out of the tap room and the beer garden. We're not going to package beer and try to create brands out there in a marketplace, because frankly, you are also still own a portion of Half Acre, and it's already doing that, and you don't need another brand to do that.
Yeah.
But what it isn't doing is serving this neighborhood and its own kind of ownership, from buy-in from the neighborhood. So it is an interesting idea, and I imagine you've done some kind of financial planning to look at how you might be able to sustain that over the next 5 years, and what that means in terms of what you need from meaningful support from the neighborhood, filling up this beer garden, which is also, since so much of the space is outdoors, going to also be pretty seasonal.
Very seasonal. So yeah, we're learning that as well, in terms of, like, we knew it was going to be seasonal. The whole thing is like, this is a seasonal business. The original business plan was close January, February, but easier said than done. Especially when you open your business in November, you cannot close in January.
Right.
So, and it's kind of like, if you miss that first shot at closing, then it's hard to get it back. And talking to friends who have breweries and have tried to do this, they've told me it's very hard to just shutter a brewery for 2 months.
Suarez does that, right?
I believe so. And I know Hill Farmstead has kind of bounced around here or there trying to do it. And it's challenging because it's a business. There's still costs. Sure. Someone still needs to be here. It's, you can't just abandon the building for 2 months. But it would be, on paper, it looks great. Okay, fill up all the tanks with lagers in December, walk away for 6 weeks, and come on back, and you got a great lager list.
Smart.
Yeah.
So it's a different kind of approach. Let's talk about the beer approach with Suncatcher, because if I look at the tap list here, a lot of low ABV beers. It doesn't look like there's anything on that tap list. Just vague, a 6% IPA is the biggest beer in your tap list. There's 5 beers on the draft list. There is not an extensive description of anything up there. It's a pretty, I mean, it almost, I walk in here, it feels like there's a pseudo kind of dive bar vibe to, I wouldn't say dive, but it's meant to be Midwest, honest, simple, uncomplicated. You're not here to get into weird intricacies of of recipe or beer style. It's just a place to come and drink really, hopefully what people assume is well-made beer.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of on the lower ABV, the lower end of the ABV spectrum is intentional. We sell 20-ounce pints. So the hope here is, again, we mostly only sell beer here on site, and we're lucky that we're in a city where people don't have to drive here. You can walk, you can ride your bike, you can, hop on the bus, whatever. So the hope here is that, you can come and sit down and enjoy a couple of beers, without being, without ruining the rest of your night, or the next day. Lower on the lower ABV end, and again, like not naming the beers, like naming beers is so hard, as everyone knows. Mostly run out of words at this point. So really just trying to stick to the style, which is, again,
Pilsner, Cascadian Pale, UK Bitter, Blonde, IPA. Very descriptive.
Yeah. So it's a lot of it's beer by color too. So we're like, all right, what color haven't we done yet? And I was just like, my wife was like, copper. You haven't done a copper ale. I'm like, oh, good point. That's a good one. Cause also running into an issue, we were talking about it yesterday here about I brew a lot of pale ales, and it's kind of hard to differentiate them with a nomenclature. So Cascadian was a little bit of a stretch. We didn't really know what to do there. So some people walk in, they see that term Cascadian, they think Cascadian black ale, or Cascadian dark ale, I should say. But it is not dark. So I was just kind of like, that's got Chinook and Cascade in it. So I was kind of like, well, what can we call this? It's, because I also want to do both hops are from Van Horn. So it could have been like Washington Pale Ale. I do a lot of regional or geographical specific beer naming. But I have in my mind to get some Washington malt and do a proper, Washington Pale Ale, Idaho Pale Ale, Oregon Pale Ale, both with malts from those regions as well.
So still making pale ale, even though obviously Daisy Cutter has its thing, and you haven't given up that innovation even within that. So so building regional iterations just lets you flex some of that brewer creativity.
Totally, and I think it's exciting to discover those nuances. And in my head, it's going to take years. I have a Michigan Pale Ale that has hops from Michigan, and that's been the beer I've made the most here. So I would say, if we did have a flagship beer, it would be the Michigan Pale Ale. And it's just fun to go on this journey and learn. We brewed with Michigan hops at Half Acre, but it's typically like with other hops as well. So I was like, let's just use only those hops and see what we get out of them, and then hopefully year over year see how they're changing. And really, it's kind of like a multi-year journey to learn these raw materials, how they work here, and then be able to adapt and lean into certain directions based on how they're performing.
So tell me about Michigan Pale Ale. Where does the inspiration for flavor start? Does it start with the Michigan grown hops? I assume that's a big piece of it. Mm-hmm. And then from those Michigan grown hops, like what varieties and what kind of flavor ideas are those Michigan grown varieties, specific varieties, then contributing to this? How do you then put that together as you're thinking about what the flavor of this is going to be?
Yeah, it's interesting because, the same hop varieties grown in Michigan are going to perform way differently than those hop varieties grown in the Pacific Northwest. So it's surprisingly, a lot of tropical fruit coming out of them. So the Michigan Pale Ale gets Nugget, Chinook, and Cashmere. So it has the Cashmere, I would say, is maybe the most similar to a Pacific Northwest Cashmere. Has a lot of that dark berry berry kind of vibe to it. But the Chinook, which is no surprise to anyone, is like super pineapple. So it's kind of weird because you would think like, I don't know, I don't associate pineapple with the state of Michigan.
Sure.
Not a lot of citrus fruit grown in Michigan. A lot of fruit grown in Michigan, but no citrus. But that's just how it is. So it's a fun one. And then all the malt is from Sugar Creek, so it's in Indiana. So it's not malt that's grown or malted in Michigan, but it's
close.
It's grown
it's
in
not that. It's only a few hours from Michigan.
The state of Indiana touches Lake Michigan, so so does the state of Illinois. So we could also look at it as Lake Michigan. We're using Lake Michigan water. We've got hops growing on the other side of Lake Michigan, and malt just south of Lake Michigan.
Sure. So tell me about this Sugar Creek malt. I've obviously lots of craft brewers are attracted to Sugar Creek for a whole variety of reasons. We had multiple conversations about that. But for you, in building a pale ale, which of their malts do you lean to, and how do you find that it? How do you use it then to get the right expression in pale ale?
Yeah, it's the project here at Suncatcher was early on was like, we're going to lean on Sugar Creek for malt. One, we're selling beer over the bar. So the increase in cost, which is getting less and less, honestly, compared like Sugar Creek's pricing versus, other larger malt supplier pricing, they're getting a little bit closer, but it's still, it costs more. It costs more for a reason. But when you're selling beer by the pint, you can tolerate that very easily. And to me, it's the relationship to be able to call Caleb anytime, be like, what's going on? Be able to go down and visit him. I was down last year driving the combine with his dad. And so it's just, to me, I'm just so attracted by what he's doing and being able to grow the grains and malt them and deliver them to Chicago, is just, it's a no brainer to want to work with what he's doing. But again, a lot of, I think locally sourced malt earlier on was kind of going into a lot of mixed fermentation beer, where you're trying to get that more character out of it. And it was kind of like, well, it's kind of a waste to put this more expensive malt and make a pale ale out of it. And I was kind of like, well, maybe not, let's see. So it just, just a little, it's maybe a little more rustic, performs a little bit differently in the brew house. But I think the flavor comes through, in terms of, it's just got a little more oomph to it. But that said, I brewed the same recipe beer with Sugar Creek malt or with Brice malt based on timing and needing to brew something and not being able to go down to Lebanon to get it. And again, when you're doing a style like pale ale, that is also relying a lot on the hop flavors. That it's not a huge difference from a flavor perspective, but it's just makes me feel good. I think it makes the beer feel good.
Sure.
And I always refer to, I'm a big fan of Neil Young, and one of his more recent albums, he's recording an album with Crazy Horse. They're in their mid to late 70s and they're like doing harmonies. And, afterwards he's like, guys, it doesn't have to sound good. It's just got to feel good. So sometimes that's my brewing philosophy of like, obviously it's got to taste good. But I believe that there's also, there's a feeling to beer that comes across, whether it may not be picked up in a spider graph, may not get picked up in sensory, but I think when you're sitting somewhere having a pint, I think that feeling comes through. So I mean, maybe not on the quantity, hard to quantify.
That's even harder to figure out than what dank is, but
yep.
But for you as a brewer, you mentioned that it works a little bit differently in the brew house. What do you mean by that?
Just in terms of like hydration, I think a lot of it too is the milling. I do not have a mill here. We're a little limited on space, and actually Caleb gave me his Blickman mill, and I just haven't got it up and running yet. I got to do some testing on it. So I think some of it could be on the milling side, but just on hydration level, how it mixes. Efficiencies are also a little bit different as well, which can get a little schizophrenic when brewing with, with malt from Breese and then malt from Sugar Creek, and on a smaller scale too, where I'm also kind of I'm not a lazy brewer, but on a small scale here, I don't want to have 5 pounds of this, 10 pounds of this sitting around. So I'm basically half bag or whole bag, and on a 10 hectoliter scale, that can swing a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's also the beauty that I see of, again, these beers aren't sitting on shelves in grocery stores with customers having a specific expectation of what it's supposed to be. So I'm very much okay with batch to batch variability, certainly in the early days here where it's been a year and a half and still, things are fairly dialed in, but there can always be more. There's always more to dial in. So I don't get too wrapped up in terms of like, oh, this one was, half a degree Plato higher. I'm like, well, it's fine. Not a big deal. It's going to be 4.8 instead of 4.5 ABV. So,
are you back on the actual brew deck here too?
Oh yeah, I do 100% of the work. I'm the only one back there. Yeah.
Well, okay then.
Yeah. And that also makes it easy.
Yeah.
Because and I learned through with my time at Half Acre, like I'm not the best manager. I'd rather just do it myself. I'm not good at training people. So that's why this as well is good for me to just be able to have full control. You don't have to consult with anyone. Don't have to, if I get upset, it's with myself, and I prefer that.
You can discipline yourself and send yourself to the
or
corner.
you can absolve yourself too.
Yeah. The grace, right?
Yeah.
The internal grace.
Yeah.
No, well, but that's still quite a move for someone who has been this deep in brewing, since 2008 to get back on the brew deck and brew all of the beer here. That's a humongous commitment.
Yeah. And again, it's, how can it be sustainable if it's on a smaller scale? So that's another reason how this model has kind of come together, where it's kind of like where my interests in brewing and sustainability and profitability intersect. It's like, okay, I don't really want to distribute beer. Selling beer over the bar, the best margins are that way. You can only ask so much of it in terms of volume and growth opportunity, but it is a profitable way to sell beer. And being able to, I think last year I made about maybe 350 barrels of beer, so very sustainable for one person to do. And the goal is to pretty much to get to the point where, again, I'm talking about, we're trying not to grow volume, but we do need to grow volume to keep this business afloat. So the goal here is to be able to make about 600 barrels of beer. But we'll see if the demand is there for it and how that works year over year.
I love this idea of trying to build a sustainable back end to the business also, which means that you have to wear a lot of hats, and
True.
You need multi-skilled individuals who can, you're not going to be able to hire a separate social media manager. You're going to have a pretty good team to also keep the books, but also have a good idea yourself of how to do that. Like, marketing, all of these things are some skill sets that you then have to have, kind of a one person who is wearing all of these hats, but also you also have to have a idea of editing in some sense that there are going to be some things that you can't do and can't spend time on, but that you might otherwise want to, but other parts of the business that absolutely need that attention are not going to be successful. How do you choose what not to spend as much time on?
That's a great question, and we're still sorting that out. I think last year was the year of like just saying no, just be like, we're not doing that. We're not taking that on. We're not doing that. We need to just keep it as simple as possible and get this foundation built. And then kind of this year was like, all right, we need to start saying yes. We need to start doing a little bit more. But it's a daily stress for sure in terms of, again, it's like you get a little schizophrenic in your head, just like trying to stay focused on like, all right, I need to make beer, but then it's like there's a bunch of other things that also need attention. And that's where I think I was a little naive. Like, oh, I only need to brew once a week. It's fine. I could do all this other stuff, but the other stuff adds up, and the brewing once a week adds up because obviously it's more than that in terms of it's not like, oh, you brew I'm in the brewery once a week and the rest of the time I got, that doesn't work that way. So it's a challenge. My wife does all the financial bookkeeping, accounting, inventory. So I'm very thankful for her to be able to do that because I'm real sloppy with it. I was doing the books at Half Acre when when we started, and it was pretty disastrous. So that was, again, like, you need to
know your limits.
You need to know your limits, and you need to know when you're not doing a good job, and you need to get out of the way. But like you said, we don't have the luxury to have a social media person, someone who can do artwork and design. We all have to kind of do it, and the social media has been probably the biggest bear for us because we kind of, not that we don't want to do it, but it doesn't come naturally to almost anyone here. But it's necessary, and we know it has to be done, and we talk about it a lot. We don't actually execute it a lot. So we're working on it. But again, it just doesn't come naturally. So we have to force ourselves, and I have to do something today. I gotta get something posted today. And it does. I do enjoy it. I enjoy writing. I enjoy photography. I'm not a good photographer, but I enjoy taking photos. But the photos are actually the hardest because it's not easy. You can get a nice photo of a beer, but when you're trying to get people in it and you're trying to show off your place busy with people, we all struggle with, in the moment, taking a photo and not having it look terrible. And
pulling yourself away from a conversation with a customer or in that kind of time just to go do the thing that needs to be done. Like it becomes a hard kind of piece of it.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that we have to work on for sure.
What how did you even get people into this place when you open the doors?
Well,
because it used to be like, oh, a new brewery's opening up, and now it's like a new brewery's opening up.
True.
You have the benefit of having a story with Half Acre there, and that that is actually news within the world of Chicago food.
Yeah. There's credibility there because of the association with Half Acre. And we have a fantastic crew. Again, it's a small crew. Everyone here works pretty much, full time. We have a few people who work here full time, 4 to 5 days a week. And it's able to work, and I don't know what our retention rate is. It's in the 90s though. I think, there's one person who started here who doesn't work here anymore, but everyone else who started with us is still here. It's only been a year and a half. But I think that shows that we're doing something right, because a big part of Suncatcher is the people. Cause like you kind of refer to this place as a dive bar. And there is a component of the way we think about this place as that. And I firmly believe that people are regulars at neighborhood spots because of the people who work there. Sure, they may like the beer here. We don't serve food. You may like the food. You may like the beer, but you're coming back because of the people. And that consistency in terms of service and the people who are working here is huge. It makes that's how you build a community, by having the people here who are here day in and day out. Our regulars come in, they know what day it is and who's going to be working here. So the people here are a huge component of Suncatcher, and just blessed with a great crew, which is a mix of former Half Acre people and some other beer professionals who did not work at Half Acre. But there's a few people who spent time at Half Acre, moved on to do other things, and then wanted to come back into beer.
So it was a kind of a strategic process of building a staff from people who you knew had relationships out there in the beer world, or that had worked for, or had been in your orbit in the past, and just built this team out of that network.
Yeah, definitely. And just wanting to have fun here and make sure everyone is having fun here. It's like, I always say, like work, it's like work still sucks. There's components of work. You're like, yeah, if you didn't have to work, nobody would work. But we do we do have
I
to
don't know
work.
what you're talking about. I love working. I'm working right now.
Yeah, but hopefully hopefully your work is enjoyable. And yeah, my mantra is
Even if it's enjoyable, it doesn't mean it's not work.
Exactly.
There's still like, yeah, you're right. Maybe I'd rather just be watching a TV show than
of course
sitting on a beach or riding my bike somewhere.
Yeah. But yeah, hopefully the goal here is like, we work hard, we enjoy the work, and we enjoy when we're not working. Yeah, we have a fantastic crew, and it's a huge part of how we've gotten to where we are here at Suncatcher.
Well, thinking about that kind of hospitality piece of it is pretty smart in that people who work and serve beer also have their own regulars. It's not quite like a hairdresser per se. When a hairdresser moves to a new salon, their customers often come along with them. It's not exactly the same here in the beer world, but if somebody knows and you've moved to a new place, people may come over and come try it out and grab a beer because they know someone has moved over there. And like that's it's interesting to think about that kind of connection between people, this nexus of people, product, location, environment, vibe, all of those things working together.
Yeah. And tasting beer is very subjective. It's a subjective thing. People get different things out of it, and the environment is a huge impact, I think, on how you enjoy that beer. So that is a key part here, is trying to match the physical location, the building, how it looks and feels, the people here, and the beers that are being made here, and trying to create an environment where they all kind of work in synergy. So that's why, the beers are the way they are. The folks who are working here are who they are, and the building kind of looks and feels the way it does, is to try to just, and again, this takes time. You don't just like open the doors to a new place and it's got a great feeling to it. But over time, as it builds that kind of patina, the energy just kind of stays in the place. And if we're doing our jobs right, it's like fermentation. You gotta keep, the yeast is doing the work for us, but you got to make sure that yeast is healthy and happy. We just got to make sure the business and the location, the building, the people are healthy and happy, and you got a good shot at succeeding.
It's a great way to think about it. And I think it's actually on theme. Obviously, CBC keynote speaker Will Guidara talking about unreasonable hospitality. And I think the entire world of craft beer thinking about the hospitality piece in addition to the product piece. I think that we've got the product, like the beer is really great now.
Totally.
But thinking about that hospitality and how we create welcoming environments, that are comfortable they're actually environments that can provide a whole spectrum, because there are different kinds of people who all drink craft beer who also want different kinds of hospitality experiences. Mm-hmm. This is that neighborhood, that comfortable, that kind of experience that you want to make for people, and you are very conscious about building that for them.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there's no right or wrong way to do it, but
you can still do a Michelin star place here in Chicago and
totally
have very refined, very attentive kind of approach to things. And this is a city like Chicago has had Michelin starred breweries,
totally,
and not just one, multiple
exactly
Michelin starred breweries. It's kind of mind blowing, but and so that is also a hospitality possibility. On the other, to kind of bookend what these possibilities are. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, there's no, there's no box that it has to fit in, but it just requires like all in terms of how you execute it. Good point. Chicago has had 2 Michelin star breweries. It is incredible.
It's kind of a cool town for that.
Yeah.
So you need to increase volume. You need to find some growth over the next couple of years in order to hit a point where it can be sustainable, and where this, it can produce the volume of beer, the amount of sales, to make it work at this. Where do you hope to be, in 3 to 5 years? How, what is that? If you were fast forwarding 3 to 5 years from now, what would you hope to accomplish in that time?
Yeah, I think we need to increase revenue for sure. So that's the way we're viewing that, is just from the beginning was like our philosophy was kind of low and slow. Our tagline is under the radar, above the clouds. So we're in a gorgeous spot, but it's a little less traveled section of the city of Chicago. But that said, there's like a 5-story condo building going up across the street. So people can argue what's going on over here.
20-minute Uber ride from the hotels downtown and all that.
Yeah, the United Center's close by. So the location is great, but our kind of goal was like not to try to come out and be the super buzzy, excited new place that everyone wanted to go to. And then kind of that crowd can tend to like move on to the next buzzy place that everybody wants to go to. So the goal was to kind of like build, grow the roots here at this location. And then in a few years, begin to flower, to use, cause we are next door to a plant store. And we have an awesome like native garden out there that has been fun to watch grow. So that is the goal for the next 3 to 5 years, is to be able, I think we've done a good job of locking in the sort of energy that we were hoping to achieve here, which is like a mix of neighborhood and beer industry people. And it's just been fantastic to have that support. So I think we've got that locked in, because sometimes you can open a place and it can get overrun in a direction that you didn't even see coming, and you can kind of lose control of it. And sometimes that's okay. But other times, if you kind of lose control of it, then you end up having a business that differs from what you were kind of hoping it to be. So I think now that we have kind of locked in the energy and vibe that we want this place to be, we want more people to come, and then we can layer people into it, and they can come in, and there's already an established energy going on here that they can hopefully are attracted to and can enjoy. So that's kind of the next 3 to 5 years, is to just kind of get ourselves, we're supposed to be under the radar, but we need to get on the radar to more people in Chicago.
You want people to come and discover it and make it their own. You don't want to like push it at people too hard. And it still needs to be that, I went by this place and it was great, and I had a really great beer, and the patio was awesome. And and now I want to keep coming back and turn some friends on and bring them there. But at the same time, yes, finding some speed to that can also be good.
Yeah, that's very well put, in terms of it's very powerful when people discover a place for themselves. And if they discover a place for themselves and they enjoy it, then they feel a little ownership over it. And that is super powerful in terms of getting people to come back. So that you said it right there. That's the goal here, is to like have people quietly discover it on their own, and then be able to make it their own, and help, just kind of join the Suncatcher community here.
That is a great place to bring this to a close. G&D's Elite 290 Micro Series is built for brewers who care about sustainability and performance. Berkeley Yeast's Dry Tropics London offers their best-selling liquid yeast strain with the ease of use of dry yeast. PacTex handles are made from 100% recycled plastic and are fully recyclable. Indie Hops Lorient has found its way into the hearts of lager lovers across the country. The Midea 50/50 Flex can convert to all fridge, all freezer, or half and half with just the touch of a button. Old Orchard is your one-stop shop for fruit juice concentrates, purees, and blends. Orbit data from Encompass provides real-time visibility into retailer data, sales, and inventory. Rived brings together all the tools you need in one complete platform. And learn more about how Haas is growing the future of brewing at johnihaas.com. If you've enjoyed this episode, go to beerandbrewing.com, click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber to Craft Beer and Brewing, and help us continue to bring these great conversations to you week after week after week. Year 9 now of the podcast. I can't believe it's 9 years before we got a Half Acre and Suncatcher podcast. Well, obviously Suncatcher is not that old, but at least a Half Acre podcast. So I couldn't pass up the opportunity here. People want to learn more about Suncatcher and what you all are doing here. Where can they find you both in real life and out there in the digital space?
We're here on the west side of Chicago. We like to say where Chicago meets Grand. It's where Chicago Avenue crosses Grand Avenue. But we've got a website, and we do have an Instagram and Facebook page, which is Suncatcher Brewing. So suncatcherbrewing.com, and I think it's at Suncatcher Brewing.
Matt Gallagher, thanks for joining me for the podcast. It is for both of these podcasts. In fact, it's been fun to pick apart your thoughts with the Omega team, and it's been great to talk to you one-on-one here. Can't wait to crack into some pints here and try some of these low ABV beers that in this fun, cool environment. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
This podcast has been brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those who love to make and drink great beer. To learn more or to subscribe, visit beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew.